Yes, welcome to All the Horrible Things, episode 22. We are taking you to camp.
We're going to camp! All the Horrible Things goes to camp!
It's about time. I was never a camp kid. Were you a camp kid?
You know what? I went to camp twice as a youngin'. In sixth grade, our not high school, but our elementary school had to go as a class. And we went with the other high school. I was Downers Grove North. Then we saw the kids with Downers Grove South, and we'd never seen these kids before, and we were stuck with them for a weekend.
Oh, weird.
At Camp Edwards, which actually was my second time because I remember a couple years prior when I was probably 10, I was sent to a camp up in Wisconsin for like a whole week. Thankfully, I had one buddy there with me, but in preparation for this cast, I was trying to think of a good story. I can't remember anything from it yet. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I mean, that's kind of the irony of it. There's so much that goes on in these horror camp movies when in reality, camp is pretty banal.
Yeah,
you know,
you just play games.
It's pretty boring. You just play games and do nature hikes. And I mean, I remember like having crushes on the girls from Downers Grove South or whatever. So I don't know. There was that. And, I take it back. It wasn't Downers Grove North and Downers Grove South. It was the elementary schools from each side.
Gotcha. Right. Springfield,
it wasn't
Shelbyville.
high school, it was sixth grade. Yes, exactly. So that was cool. That was the most momentous part about it is you saw kids. Then a couple of years later, you're going to go to high school with.
That's cool.
And
now, I never
like a preview of the kids you're going to have in your future.
That's yeah. Hopefully everything worked out. I think there's a funny story that Larry David of Curb Your Enthusiasm, Seinfeld fame, met Richard Lewis, like his best friend, in like summer camp. They've known each other that long. I think that's so amazing to me. I never went to
Dollars to donuts. They would have been a lot like Angela and been from sleepaway camp, reluctant to get into the water, reluctant to do any of the activities.
Just sit
for
there
other
on the
reasons
bench.
than Angela. But yes, that's awesome because their dynamic in Curb is so wonderful to know that it goes back to summer camp.
Yeah,
is hilarious to hear.
The other funny thing I noticed about doing the research for these movies is that there's straight up moments from these 80s camp movies that Wet Hot American Summer just plucked from.
Right.
The
there's
inspiration.
A lot of the same tropes.
It wasn't just like the movie Meatballs, which, there's that in there as well. But they plucked from these horror movies, which is just brilliant. Because these movies have some very funny moments. I think it's just because it was the 80s, though.
They definitely do. I think Wet Hot American Summer really does well with, satirizing what's going on in these flicks. And of course, with a cast that can't be beat.
Absolutely. At the top of the episode here, we want to address the fact that we will not be talking about Friday the 13th for multiple reasons. One, I think it's fun to not take the obvious pick here. And if you go back a few episodes, we covered some of the Friday the 13th movies already. So let's move away from that. Let's talk about some of these other gems from most of them are from the 1980s, not all of them, but there were some movies on here that I had been wanting to watch for a long time, like 1981's The Burning. Now,
before we do that, I just wanted to note here, the ones that we looked at are really only from the 80s and then the teens from what I'm seeing on my list, with the one exception that's a kind of little comedy horror camp scene in Addams Family Values, which we'll get to. That's the only one in the 90s. Otherwise, we don't even have any in the aughts. It's kind of interesting to see that cycle,
Absolutely.
Camp movies kind of like hit in the 80s and then hit in the teens again.
Well, you have to wonder, is summer camp something like the video store is just a part of time, like we've moved away from it, or do they still exist?
That's interesting. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't go. I thought like all the kids in the DuPage area had to go sixth grade.
No, never.
But maybe it's something that's phasing out. Maybe things are getting a little too helicopter parenty. Don't want to send away your kids, sort of thing.
Yeah.
From my perspective, my parents couldn't wait to get rid of me for a week.
Thank God.
That's what I saw.
We have a week to ourselves.
Yes,
a break.
Well, let's talk about 81's The Burning. And let's say right at the top here that we do not approve of the writer of this movie.
The
creator and writer is the notorious Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, you know what? I think I did see Miramax pop up at the beginning. I'm like, I didn't even know that they were doing things yet. No, not only do we not approve of him, there's some really just bad jokes and you could chalk that up to the 80s, but just some stuff that just really does not hold up well in a lot of these movies.
For sure. I mean, one of the staples of these flicks is gratuitous boobs.
Oh,
so many boobs.
God, Sleepaway Camp 2 is all boobs. But the burning, you've got a young Jason Alexander. How exciting was it to see young
with hair?
With hair,
and he has the exact same like tonal and vocal patterns. It's hilarious to watch. It was so fun because honestly, I think I've only seen Jason Alexander work outside of Seinfeld and maybe one or two movies post Seinfeld.
Right.
One where he's like part of like a group of gay friends. I remember that being really strong flick. And then of course he had his not spin-off, but subsequent sitcom to Seinfeld that failed, where he was like a stress management guy or a motivational speaker. It didn't work. But to see him with hair and essentially the comedic relief in this movie.
But also possibly the jock. Was he the jock? They've got him in
there's the one big lug. There's the one big blonde, long-haired lug that might have been a little more jockey than him.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you not only got him, but you got Fisher Stevens in this one too.
And did you also know there is a very young Holly Hunter in there?
Who didn't have a darn line. As we were watching it, we kept trying to be like, spot her. Where is she? Where is she?
Yeah.
And she doesn't say a darn thing. And I was so bummed because I wanted to hear her twang.
I know.
Her Southern twang.
I know. You also have an actor, one of our main characters here, Brian Backer, who plays Alfred, I think his character's name is. He's been...
Oh, yeah.
He was also in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Police Academy movie, I think. I'm just saying this movie launched some careers here. And I remember before I had even like watched this, people would always reference the raft scene in this movie.
Oh my goodness.
Which is probably the highlight of the movie. They had assembled a pretty good raft.
So. It's certainly better than the ridiculously long ending sequence.
The chase.
Oh my gosh. What? I mean, that happens in Friday too. And even Texas Chainsaw, there's just these ridiculous chase scenes at the end. But before we jump to that raft one, let's talk about our killer.
Yeah.
Because we get to see at the top of the movie what made Cropsy. Yeah. So this movie starts off like a lot of 80s or summer camp movies with a prank. Now, I don't know if they were saying it in the dialogue. I think I was just trying to figure out what was going on because they basically broke into Cropsy's cabin and put a burning skull. Whoa! What it's
was
something
that?
Goth kids would have as decoration now, though. You know, it was like a melted. It looked like a skull that had candles on it and melted.
Where
over
did
it,
they
and then
get
they put
that?
like worms in the nostril holes, right? And it was on fire a little bit. It was burning at the top.
Yes,
but it really just looked like a Halloween candle to me. You know,
right?
So they put that,
and then they start pounding on the window. The pounding.
Yeah, then they got to wake this drunk up because he's established as kind of this cantankerous drunk who is the groundskeeper, essentially. So then, they all but break the window to wake him up, and he sees this candle and freaks the heck out.
And tosses it towards himself.
He pulls it toward him, and his like wool blankets just go up.
His legs go up.
In flames.
His whole body goes up. And the kids are like, let's get the hell out of here. Instead of doing anything to help him.
They just watch him burn, essentially.
Now, they established that they didn't like him and that he may not be the best guy. But do we really know? Like, was he abusive in any way? Because last week's episode where we were talking about like origin stories, and we were talking about Freddy Krueger and being, kind of born from fire. We totally could have said Cropsy was as well.
We could have mentioned Cropsy. He is definitely a product of fire. Glazer was the big jock. I was trying to think of that guy's name, but Glazer was our her big
Okay.
jerk face, stereotypical jock. Who's the main guy? Todd. Todd's our main guy, right?
Yeah.
Todd was the youngest one of the crew at the beginning to be part of this prank. So 5 years later, when we pick up with what's going down at, do we have a camp name for this one? Yeah, Camp Blackfoot.
That's right.
Which is interesting.
That's right.
This character Todd was part of it. Now he's come back as a counselor, and he's essentially our main. Would you say he's our main protagonist?
Yeah, if not him and his counterpart Michelle, who also launched her career in this movie. And the only other movie I really know her from was Bloodsport, where she is the reporter who's following Van Damme.
She's one of those actresses who always seems like she's squinting. And I mean, am I wrong? But she has a very Karen-esque vibe. It's always like she has like not a smile, but like a little bit of a grimace and squinty eyes. Didn't love Michelle, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, at least we have, a balance in our feminine lead and male lead. And they were together too, which really wasn't clear until halfway through the movie that they had a romantic relationship. Right.
Oy. So was it clear that, as I may have missed it, I definitely, you find out later that what was his name? Todd. Was Todd. It clear that he was one of the kids from the beginning, or it was revealed?
No, we don't see that until there was like a flashback.
It's the flashback.
Okay. Him. And then you just essentially the only way they reveal is like his name is said once during the guys conspiring at the beginning to prank this guy. So yeah, I think it might have been better to learn that earlier.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Like maybe I would have looked at this movie a little bit differently if I knew he was part of like the origin story.
Before we jump into the deaths of these counselors, we have a death prior. So Cropsey is burned, but he lives. And he's in the fire ward, right? The burn ward,
yes.
burn unit.
Oh my God. What an amazing scene, by the way. Like a fraternity, like
And then you got this like younger doctor who's trying to like, I guess, train this new doctor who looks about 55.
Yeah, he looks so old.
And he's apparently just gotten into medicine.
Anthony Edwards in ER, like not his rookie year.
Older almost, and no charisma at all. And then of course he's like freaking him out. Oh man, you're gonna not want to be a doctor anymore after you see this guy. And of course they go and see Cropsey, and it's pretty horrifying.
Now I will say
he then escapes, and then why does he kill the hooker?
I don't know.
Why is there that scene? What is the scene with him with the scissors? I guess just to establish that his weapon of choice is
I think so.
Sniffies?
I think so. I think that's all it was. I don't think it was really necessary at all.
No, I didn't think it was either. And I thought there was a missed opportunity because he stabs her in the belly. There was some interesting makeup there. The belly looked really jiggly. It was really like jello-y. I don't know. It was just so fascinating what was going on with that stab.
Yeah.
And then he seems like he's gonna push her out the window, but they just break that sugar glass. And he kind of like pulls her back in. Why wasn't she thrown out the window? I felt like it was a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, for a cool like death scene. Yeah, I don't know.
Right?
I don't know.
Anyways, let's get to the camp because this is the goes to camp episode.
Let's talk about his weapon of choice because he's a groundskeeper. Okay. I thought it was pretty innovative. I mean,
I like it.
I do too.
Because there's multiple ways he can kill people with it. It's not just stab, stab, stab.
Yeah, and before this is before we actually see a Jason Voorhees. I mean, he had all like the picks there, and being a groundskeeper, he had access to a lot of cool stuff.
That's true.
Could have been a machete.
Our first kill in the actual camp does speak to Harvey Weinstein being the writer of this, because you have this really pushy character, Eddie, who's trying to get on Karen, right?
Yes.
So he finally convinces her to go out there, and he convinces her to skinny dip, but that's not enough for Eddie. Eddie gets really handsy and beyond. Karen's not having any of it. She's like, this is too fast, too much for me. She gets up and leaves. And I don't know about you, and I was really hoping for Eddie to be the first to bite it.
Oh, yeah, he should have been.
Instead, Karen, who's doing the right thing, trying to be chaste, but not giving him that nookie.
Did not deserve it.
She gets killed, but this is, maybe it was my TV, but it was such a dark scene how she got killed. It wasn't clear to me.
Correct.
I think he clipped her throat.
I think so too.
I didn't decapitate her, but I think there was just a little clip of her throat because I know her neck was bleeding, but I didn't understand how she died.
No. And again, I think we could have established that Cropsy, which he kills basically anybody who is like a camp kid. He has no qualms killing children, but we could have established right here him killing Freddy because he may have been like the type of kid who burned him, but instead he kills the innocent girl, the victim.
Right. Which is, it speaks to why did he kill the hooker too? It added like this psychosexual element that really wasn't established prior. I mean, sure, I guess you could assume Cropsy was a drunk and asshole because he wasn't he was kind of a gross looking dude and stuff.
Right. And they could have established that in the opening scene that, we're getting Cropsy back for being a creepy uncle to this camper,
for creeping on our girls or something.
Exactly.
Right. But none of that.
No.
And then he starts going after the girls. Okay, but then we move to the raft scene.
Yes.
Where you're expecting, first of all, it took so long for them to approach that raft. It seemed like we were watching them paddle.
Yeah.
Forever. And what did you expect to be in that raft?
I thought it was going to be a dead kid.
I thought it was going to be dead Karen even or something. I thought it was going to be a dead body.
Yes, same here. But no.
And I'll admit, I was surprised. It's rare that these movies can surprise me. And I didn't expect him to be so patient, I guess, and to be hiding in the raft. And as soon as they get up to it.
Cropsy can power nap with the best of them.
It was kind of weird how they established all of the rafts were let loose.
Yeah.
So it seemingly he was trying to make it so people couldn't escape, so he could continue to cause.
And didn't they blame Karen? Like, she had such a bad time out here that she let
Karen just release.
So rude.
Poor Karen just been murdered, and now she's getting.
Give her the blame for the canoes.
What was your favorite death in the canoe? Because we have, is it 5 or 4?
Oh,
there's
man,
at least 4 kids on the canoe.
5. I think it was Fisher Stevens. Well, first of all, just getting all of his fingers clipped.
Yes, all his fingers. Oh my goodness! And that's actually in the scene on, or the frame on IMDb that they use is Fisher Stevens without fingers, just staring at his bloodied hand. But the last kill, the annoying girl. I don't know if you remember this one girl in this green tracksuit, super annoying. But boy, does she get hers. When I've never seen a kill like this, he takes his what do you call them? Clippers,
shears, or
shears,
shears.
gardening shears, and like has them open and just slashes on her forehead.
Yeah,
just like digs deep into her forehead. I'd never seen a kill like that before.
Yeah.
I will note that what is it? Eddie, our Harvey Weinstein-esque character, does get penetrated in the neck.
The neck,
so I thought that was kind of like interesting phallic stuff.
Yeah.
That's one thing that pops up a lot in these. There's a lot of neck business, a lot of neck death. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I honestly think it's because it's one of the easier effects to pull off, aside from just getting stabbed in the stomach or something. But it also maybe the jugular, that's where all the blood is going to spray out from. I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I just feel like it takes away from your ability to scream often. Screams are such a big part, but if you're going to the neck. But you're right. That raft scene almost makes the movie.
Yeah.
And bring back up Costanza. Costanza's there on the on the shore. Yeah. You got the bloodied raft with the bodies floating back at him. And he's just wisecracking and stuff. Yeah. And then the kids are like, What do you think? What do you think's going on over there? He's like, I don't know. Let's just wait and find out. He was like, suddenly stopped being funny and was just really pragmatic about it.
He's also really sarcastic to the girl. He's like, "Am I on the raft?" Like,
exactly.
The little girl's like, "What's going on?" So. Funny,
following the raft scene, we get the lover's death. So this is where we have Glazer and his girl in the woods,
right,
getting it on. And then he prematurely releases, and she's very disappointed because he was talking.
That's right,
talking up his sexual game, essentially saying it's worth it. Give it up to me, and you're gonna just have quite the time.
Right,
and of course, a minute later, he's done. He's like, I'm gonna go back to the camp and get food or something. I don't know. But he left her for a minute. He comes back. And of course, during that time, she has been decapitated by the shears. But it's an interesting scene because, again, we have Cropsy being very patient and that he had, and, methodical and having her head there at the top of the sleeping bag, but having his own self hidden in the sleeping bag.
Yes.
So Laser comes.
I didn't really understand how that worked.
Because Cropsy's a big guy, and it did not look like there was a big man in that sleeping bag with her head popping out of it.
Yeah.
But then again, he gets it in the neck, right? And then he's pushed back to the tree. Another neck kill. But Glazer had it coming. I was happy to see him get his.
Also, how about how creepy Alfred is just being a creep? We didn't talk about the first introduction of the character spying on the girl in the shower. And he said, I was trying to scare her. Now you've got him. He kept saying that. I was just trying to scare her. What you did. But
a different kind of scare guy.
Yeah. And then now you've got him as the peeping Tom in the woods. I really don't understand why they kept doubling down on this kid who we're following like through the whole movie as being such a creep.
Seemingly almost to be the most sympathetic with in a weird way, because Todd is very protective of him.
Yeah. And
Todd's our like main, so it just felt really weird that we're supposed to feel for this Alfred kid who is essentially
a peeping Tom perv. Yeah.
But he's kind of our final dude. He survives, doesn't he?
Yeah. There's a really does. I mean, we don't need to we'll just jump to the barn scene at the end here where he's you got Todd who shows up to save him. And they do that classic slasher movie where they think they killed him and he pops back up and Alfred decides to burn him again. So he gets stuck to the wall, and then Alfred starts like dousing him like, okay, this full circle. Cropsy gets burned again.
Too much. And Cropsy is really the victim here, initially. He has a reason to be pissed off because fire's not fun. I mean, no. I remember them saying specifically that guy is in more pain than you can believe.
Yeah.
Somebody else we have in a later movie also has a different kind of burn, which we'll talk about. But yeah, the end was absolutely ridiculous. And I remember the editing being so insane. Like at one, maybe it was the cut that I watched or something. But at one point, like he has the flamethrower, Cropsy does, and he's pointing it at Todd. But then suddenly that's not happening, and Todd is then walking the other direction through. There was some bad edits and some really bad camera movement. Some of the camera zooms were just insane. So dark.
Insane.
Ugh.
So
but I will say, for the raft alone, it's worth a watch.
Yes, if you've never seen The Burning, at least it holds up to being a summer camp movie as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't hate it. It was actually better than I thought.
Same.
I just wish Harvey Weinstein wasn't affiliated with it because I don't think I'm going to revisit it.
No, you never need to. So also in 1981, we have Madman. And
oh my God.
Madman's a goofy one. It's the legend of Madman Mars. This movie starts off the same way Sleepaway Camp does with the or at least Sleepaway Camp 2.
The camp. Storytelling around the camp.
Exactly.
Quite the trope.
Classic. The other part about it being classic is that you always start with one ghost story that's like terrible. And then and he was hanging from the door. And then you've got like the person who's like, you want to hear a real spooky story? And the guy who runs the camp, who seems like the nicest old man, tells these campers, some of them are very small children, about this man who haunts these woods, who his backstory is terrible. He was an abusive husband, father, and
axed his wife and kid.
His son and daughter. So he had two kids. And then the townspeople, served their own justice and they lynched him in a tree, which presumably is nearby there, because after the story's told, there's this smart ass kid who's wandering through the woods like the entire movie, throws a rock and like hits the house. But you're not supposed to say Madman Mars.
You can't say his name
because
Madman
he
Mars
will hear you.
He's essentially a Bloody Mary, a Candyman of sorts.
Correct.
You can't say his name.
Correct.
Now, which I don't know. In this, it doesn't really work for me. Why does his name have that kind of power?
I don't know.
I needed that to be fleshed out a little bit. The way Bloody Mary and Candyman is, it just felt arbitrary.
Now, yeah, because this killer has no redeeming qualities, no real purpose aside from just murdering people, which, you know, even Cropsy, you know, was wronged.
Yeah. And Cropsy, I mean, when you get to see him at the end, he kind of looks like that melted candle that they used for the prank at the beginning.
Right.
It's like this melted, really gross, scary face.
Yeah.
Madman Mars. Like Madman Mars is like a saber tooth sort of guy.
Looks like an adult-sized version of a troll doll. I swear, he moves really quickly, weirdly.
Yeah.
I don't think he's got shoes on. I he's a big man with this crazy wig, like just absurd, over the top appearance. But not scary, really.
Correct.
More like scary, more intimidating
for him looking like that.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
More intimidating. There was one really cool thing that I thought, as far as storytelling goes, was cool. That there's an axe stuck in a stump, and if you can get this axe out of the stump, you get like $100 or whatever. This is what the guy who runs the camp has told everybody. Now, one of our counselors is like, is this bet still going on? And he gets the old man. So the two of them, the guy who runs the camp, the two of them cannot pull this axe out of this stump. But the cool introduction to Madman Mars being on the property is you just see his one hand yank it out. I mean, that was cool. You're establishing.
That's cool. I mean, it's like a Thor / Sword in the Stone sort of thing. Yeah. He is the one meant to kill. To kill,
but how powerful he is too. Now, see, I think
that's true.
They could have done a better job with the actual creation of this character.
Yeah, because there wasn't sequels, right? And another thing we should mention is this was banned for a while. I know it was banned in some countries. I think it was even put off the release here. I think they might have had to do some editing too to take out some of the gore.
Interesting.
I wasn't that impressed with the gore. It was fine. It's run of the mill to me.
I will say there is a scene that's done really well with the Madman Mars likes to also hang people. So he hangs, right. I think the character's name is TP, because he's got that belt buckle just dangling there.
Yes.
Madman Mars did a pretty good job of killing this one guy. So they're
finishing the job. Because that's the first time I've ever seen somebody try to get noose. So essentially he's like rung up, and he was strong enough to actually like climb up the rope himself on his own weight or something, and then grab the tree branch. So he's kind of like able to breathe. And then Madman Max finishes the job.
You just call him Madman Max, which is almost better than Madman Mars.
Mars. You're right.
It's almost better. I'm like, I like that.
By yanking on his ridiculous belt and cracking that neck.
Yeah.
Now, I can't say that I love this movie. I can't recommend it.
No, I wouldn't either. I really liked the counselors. They did a good job of like fleshing those characters out. The thing,
even the camp owner was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, he was great. Like his storytelling style too was really great. I'm like, that guy is selling this. Like, I like him as the leader of this camp, unlike the leader of like Sleepaway Camp.
Right. I mean, that's the point. Is like, it seemed like most of the people that run the camps in the other movies, douches, complete jerks, or in the case of Addams Family Values, just saccharine sweet. You know. Yeah, that's one thing I like. And you also mentioned it was a camp for
gifted children,
kids, right? Gifted kids,
gifted children.
That was something that was unique in itself too.
Yeah.
But what were you saying about the characters?
Well, no, I mean, I liked them. I kind of felt like we got a real good glimpse into who each character was, what their relationships were to each other in a short amount of time, which was impressive. The other thing I liked is that this was at the end of the season. You know, kind of like the last day of camp in Wet Hot American Summer. It just, kind of, gives things like some closure. It also says a lot about what time of year it is. I mean, they did a good job of setting things up, except for your main character.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I felt like the killer was forgettable. But you're right. The actual counselors were pretty dynamic. I remember one girl just being like, "I hate saying goodbye to people," when this one dude's like, he's gonna be so sad he's gonna lose her, and he's like, "Listen, let's not do this. I'm not begging a goodbye." It just felt real. The dialogue between the counselors felt actually legitimate.
Yeah.
It was the counselors were well written. But
why couldn't
still
they,
not worth it.
No, you don't need to see this one. You don't need to see it.
Let's talk about one that you have to see, and I'm shocked that I hadn't seen it until this week, and that's Sleepaway Camp, baby.
1983.
Shockingly interesting and groundbreaking, even, I would say. 1983?
1983.
And we're at Camp Arawak.
Yeah. Now,
which I like. It sounds a little more, I like that better than Blackfoot.
Absolutely.
That's a more appropriate name for a camp.
Mm-hmm.
So what we got going on in Sleepaway Camp starts off bonkers.
Is super bonkers story about a girl witnessing like the death of her family.
Well, she was part of that instigation, though. It's because her and her brother,
that's true,
they rocked the boat. They were playing a little prank on him, on their dad, but she has two dads.
Yes.
Well, one real dad, and then he's with a man, and tipped the boat, and then she loses her brother and father to a motorboat engine.
Speedboat,
Speedboat just goes right over them, tears up their heads. Poor girl's going to be a little traumatized by that. So she's sent with Auntie, who seems like a character out of a Tim Burton movie.
Oh my God. The way that she's got this monologue and internal monologue going at the same time, but out loud, to herself, we get a good idea that she's crazy.
Yeah, and she's a doctor.
So which doesn't make any sense.
Right. I know. It really doesn't. And at one point you see her with Angela, and Angela has this bandages over her head. Well, I'm assuming she was hurt too on that, or did that have something to do with other stuff, which we'll get to later?
Good question. Good question. So
she's
Angela's
living traumatized. Sorry, go ahead.
No. She's now living with her aunt and cousin, and this is the start of the camp season, and the aunt is sending them both off to Camp Arawak. Now, he's a great cousin. He's very protective of Angela.
He's cool. Ricky's badass. He's a rough and tumbler who's not willing to put up with any BS, and he's a ladies' very man. Protective of his cousin.
Yeah, he's got a best friend at camp. They go all the way back 3 years, I think the kid says.
Paul, right? Ricky and Paul. Paul becomes kind of the love interest, if you will.
Yeah,
of
he's a weird kid.
He is kind of strange.
Ricky sees his ex from last year has developed and moved on. She has no interest in Ricky anymore. She's going with the older guys. And she's just straight up
this is one where we really focus on the kids more than the counselors, I would say.
That's true. That's a great point.
Isn't always the case, but we're definitely focusing on the kids more. And the counselors are just dicks for the most part.
Yes.
There's maybe one exception of one camp counselor girl that does stand up for Angela, who, like in a lot of these, is being bullied. Angela does not talk much at all. She's obviously has been traumatized from the family situation. But Paul is the one character who is able to kind of get her out of her shell a little bit, talk to her.
Right.
And, he's kind of got the hats for her. He kind of moves quick, Paul.
He does.
If you ask me.
He does. And
we're supposed to like Paul, though. We're supposed to, especially in '83. You're supposed to kind of empathize with what he's doing and trying to make her feel better. But there is always that underlying, he's trying to get in her pants.
Oh, yeah. And for some reason, this pisses Judy off, who has
Jude.
She is
the most hair worst out of any character in all of Camp Horror ever. Jude's hair.
It's a lot.
Was a lot. It was unforgettable. Jude and Meg. So Meg's the counselor, and then Jude's her little minion, who's one of the kids, and they just gang up on Angela and Paul. They give Paul crap a lot too. Don't talk to the girls. He's kind of scared of them at one point. The next time you see Meg kind of coming up to Angela and him, he's like, "Oh, here comes the wicked witch of the west. Oh, I'm gonna go."
He leaves her. Another reason why I'm a little confused of his intentions. He's clearly not sticking up for her at the right times.
No, right. Yes. And of course, later he gets on Jude. Granted, Jude is very manipulative. She is hyper alpha female, if you will. And she's essentially tries to steal Angela's boyfriend.
Yeah. And just to
sorta.
get under Angela's skin.
Yes. Which I didn't really get why Jude hated her so much, other than I guess she was quiet. I mean, there was no real
there was no reason. She was different, right? That's
right. She was different.
Bullies
she
don't
wouldn't
like
shower with the girls too, which was something she really harped on. Why didn't you ever shower when everybody else showers? And at the time, I didn't really think much of that line.
Exactly.
Because I didn't see the end coming, which we'll definitely get to that. Before we do that, let's talk about some of these kills, which I thought were unique.
Yeah.
You got this creepy, essentially pedo chef, one of the cooks.
Let's talk about him because he is one of the creepiest characters I've ever seen. Let's talk about when the kids first show up. He says something along the lines of, "Look at all that chicken." Like, what? Chicken?
Imagine he's like a pedophilic Barney Gumble to me.
Yeah.
Barney wasn't a drunk, and he was more into kitties.
And the thing
that's the look he had.
Yes, and the thing that really bothered me about that was that the other staff members, the other cooks, were totally cool with it.
They get paid off afterwards.
Totally cool with him being this obviously outspoken creep.
Well, there's actually something interesting to that because all the other cooks were people of color. There was no other Caucasian cooks there. He's the only Caucasian and the one that's in charge. Super creepy. So in a way, you're gonna talk against him. Like even now, it's one of those weird sort of racial undertones that was going on there.
It's a good call.
Which is actually kind of interesting. They were adding something to that.
Yeah.
Him being able to get away with that. But my goodness, his death was pretty good. It was pretty satisfying.
Was so satisfying because no one deserved it more than that guy.
Right.
Who was taking Angela into the cooler, the walking cooler to find, oh God, it was so creepy. And the thing that was really friggin' creepy is that this man took his sweet time putting his belt buckle back in. Like, if you're going to do that, just do it in the walk-in. He comes back out and the head of the camp sees him like rebuckling.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
disgusting.
Mel is a piece of work. Mel, the head of this camp, Airwhack, is a jerk. We'll talk about it too in Stage Fright, but these essentially runners of the camp managers, have a lot on the line. And when people start dying, they're thinking about their job and their monetary futures more than the deaths of kids, detrimental, or the safety of the kids in the case of Mel, seeing that Angela is about to be messed with. So Mel, right out the gate, turns out to be kind of a shady character. So we get the chef boiled alive when our killer essentially pushes him into the pot, and the pot falls on him. It's the biggest pot of boiling water.
The largest pot ever. And they're going to put all this corn in there, I guess, right?
Yes, there was corn everywhere, corn on the cob everywhere. But I mean, logistically speaking, with a pot that's that big with that much water, it wouldn't have tipped over. You know what I mean? It was would have been too heavy. Granted, he was a big guy, so maybe, but still, completely burned, can barely talk. I don't know why he doesn't tell them who the killer is, like who did it to him, because he's burned.
They get him out of there so quick. They get him out of there so quick.
And he might have just been delirious with pain. I'll let it slide.
Oh, that's another burning. That's another burning.
It is. It's another burning, indeed. So then we have a drowning. Can you remind me of this one? Who gets drowned?
Well, let me think here.
I know the one following that is a good one. It's the bees.
Oh,
so the killer takes her revenge on like one of the bully counselors. And while he's on the pot taking number 2, I do believe.
Yes, he even says, "I gotta take a massive dump." Yeah. Like, okay, just go do that.
We needed to know that. She takes a bee's nest and tosses it in there, so he's stuck in there with the bees.
There's a broom handle that has locked the doors, the stall door, which was clever, but also
it was clever.
Hilarious reveal of his feet. Not even like terrible.
No
feet.
Bees. I was like, where are the bees?
There's no bees.
You just hear them.
You just hear them. But also some of the worst foot acting I've ever seen. His feet are down there, barely moving. Like there's bees. They should be stomping up and down and like.
Right.
I will say this about the movie: it's a lot of fun, but there is a lot of bad acting in it. A lot.
Absolutely. Overacting.
Even Mel is a terrible actor. And I just looked it up, and this guy.
It kind of works for him because he's very ethnic, you know.
Yeah.
Like Upper East Coast guy. But what's interesting is you do get to see the bees when he does break through the wall and falls on the ground deadish.
Yeah.
But the way the bees were able to like,
he had to have been allergic, right? I was thinking the same thing. Like,
there has to have been something like that because his face was like ruined.
The only way,
and it wasn't My Girl-esque. You know what I mean? Which no. I was not crying like I did for Macaulay Culkin's death. I was rooting for this guy's death, but they were just the welts were so like deep, and it didn't seem possible.
It wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have acted that quickly, and I think that's the only way that death worked was on paper. When you're saying, he was because when it's time to do the makeup, you're like, well, what do we do? But they made him look just horrific from the bees, which, I mean, it was rewarding.
You do get to see the bees then.
Yes.
The bees are crawling all over him. So I did appreciate that. You don't see them in the actual stall.
Right.
Another one kill following that is Meg, who's our meanest of mean counselors. And she has the weirdest relationship with the head of this camp, Mel, that I didn't understand at all. Mel is an old dude,
not really an attractive old man,
grizzly,
and she is really into him. She even says to the girls, "Well, I've got a date tonight." Like, whoa, Meg, what are you talking about?
I mean, he's 60. Let's say he's 60 at the minimum, right? And we have our 18-year-old Meg, who's a camp counselor here, and she's falling all over him. It's so absurd. I don't get it, other than they needed to give Mel a little more motive to go after Ricky and make it seem like Ricky had been doing all the murders.
Right.
Because why would Meg ever be into him? But anyway, she goes and she's to take a shower because they're going on a date at 9:00. She's going to have her second dinner or whatever because she just left dinner. I thought we were going to have dinner. Okay, let's do it again at 9:00. She's taking a shower, and our killer, instead of like just slicing through the curtain, decides to go through the plastic wall.
Right through the wall
with a knife. And I did like this. It was pretty gruesome. I don't know how this character had that kind of strength. Well, maybe. I don't know. But she goes through it and then like up her spine with it, which I thought was pretty graphic. Pretty interesting kill.
And she's not dead in that moment either. I think she falls to the ground still. Now, right before this moment, though, I think is this where we see the reveal of like the first time we're like, is that Angela or is it Ricky?
Right.
I mean, you start to see.
I think the first reveal is really the next kill with Jude.
You're right.
Because you have the figure standing in the door.
That's what it is.
And it's very unclear whether or not it could be Ricky, maybe, or it's Angela, because those kind of the only two viable for a while there. Because I hadn't seen it, I was thinking maybe it's Paul. Obviously wrong, but yeah, we first get to see our killer, who's Angela, this little kid who has her arch nemesis Jude, who essentially just like humiliated the boy that she was making out with, calling him, every emasculating thing under the sun, and then is left there alone reading her magazine. And we have our killer sneak up on her with a curling iron.
Now, this was inventive. This was, I mean, you're kind of left to wonder how exactly it was used.
I think there's only one, but I don't think, because it seems like she was being electrocuted a little bit, right?
Yeah.
With it, which I don't think would have happened, but it is insinuated that it is used
inside of
her lady parts.
Yeah.
And that's what kills her, which granted, the amount that she was humiliating Angela about her sexuality, this was an appropriate way for her to go, even though it was like, what? it was so
absolutely. It was
ludicrous.
Bonkers is the only word for it.
Kind of made you feel icky when you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on, and that's really the only intimation you can make. So, but Jude had it coming, and it's funny because we talk about her huge hair, and it is the curling iron that takes her down. She was very hairy.
What a way to go!
Very hairy girl.
She was indeed.
And moving right along, then of course you have Mel, leader of the camp. He finds Meg, which is really ridiculous. She's been killed in that shower, as discussed, but not until Mel walks up to the shower does she suddenly fall out of the shower.
Yeah.
Perfect timing with that fall.
Brilliant.
Unbelievable.
Mel's performance.
He goes after Ricky.
Mel's performance in this goes through so many stages of grief in one moment.
Right.
He's shocked. He's confused.
I'm gonna get that Ricky.
Angry now. Yeah. It's absurd.
And then he's like literally starts to beat down Angela's cousin Ricky. Like Donkey Kong.
Yes.
He was Donkey Kong.
Yes.
2 fists down on his chest.
And you're just thinking, this poor boy. It was the weirdest attack.
Thankfully, Ricky lives.
Yeah.
Ricky lives. See another day.
Yeah.
But then we know it's not Ricky because that was the only other option.
Yeah,
because
Ricky's
you
been
then
removed.
see Mel get arrowed through the neck.
Yep.
He stumbles onto the archer's range. It can't be you. He sees the killer. There's no way it would be you.
Yeah.
So absurdly. Gets into the neck. He done. And then finally we have the 2 other counselors who are then, we got to go find Paul, right? They then start hunting for Paul.
Yeah.
Because Paul is missing. And as noted before, Paul was the one that wanted to get with Angela.
Angela sets Paul up to meet him.
That's right.
Because Paul is just like, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive me.
Right.
And she's like, okay, meet me. And he's like, I'll be there. And you're like, oh, brother, you are in for the surprise of your life.
Am I mixing up movies, or does she then insinuate that they're going to skinny dip or something? Does he not?
Yeah, no, you're right. No, I mean, I too am struggling with making sure I'm not, getting a lot of these movies confused, but
because she ends up naked too, because our big reveal here, in case you haven't seen it, is that
Angela
Paul dies, first of all.
Yes.
Paul's decapitated by Angela, who is naked at this point. And the counselors find her, shocked to see Paul has been decapitated and that she has a wiener.
Did Paul... A wiener. Did Paul deserve that? Did Paul deserve his...
He was a little pushy.
He was.
Yeah, he first stole that first kiss in their first intimate moment.
Oh, yeah, it was real creepy.
Asks, can I have another? She doesn't say yes, and he takes another kiss. So he wasn't...
Yeah.
He didn't have consent.
You're right. Chop that boy's head off.
From my perspective, Paul did have it coming.
All right.
Shocking ending,
yes.
Mostly because of beyond just the fact that it turns out that she was biologically male.
Mm-hmm.
We then deal with the face that she makes, which is like the scariest face I've ever seen on a killer ever. Yeah. You got to use that for one of our promo images because that haunted me for the next couple days. It's just like it's scarier than the Joker's grin. What she's doing, and to have such a demure character up to that point, then be standing there, obviously having decapitated this boy, covered in his blood, with this like you call it a grin? It's more like a grin grimace combo.
Yeah,
it was scary.
Yeah,
like it was the scariest part of the movie, just seeing her there.
But also, I believe what's going on here is that they did not use a real human body for that reveal. That looked like almost like a weird mannequin or something. You know,
I wasn't clear what was going on there because we had supposed that it was a prosthetic that was put on her. Yeah, but no, I think it makes more sense if there was a mannequin.
Yeah,
that would I think
actor
be more legal to do.
Yeah, the actor who plays Angela, Felissa Rose, who bless her, every time you see her posted online, she's doing that face for a fan, and she's seems like the nicest person to continue to do it. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
She continues to act in horror movies. By the way, she's again seems like a delight. I would love for her to make that face for us one day.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, I assume that it was a body that was created for that reveal. Now, we also learn in a really weird cutscene that the ants had decided for a very selfish reason that she wanted a girl. Right. And it also felt very theatrical. Like they may have shot that like on a stage.
It did. That's why I felt it felt like Tim Burton-esque, this cutaway scene that was really black, white, and red more than anything else. And then you have her saying, "You're going to be a girl now."
Yeah. Thanks, Auntie.
I mean, I want a horror movie just about that ant. That
Seriously,
ant was
they could have done
super scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only seen 2. We'll talk about 2 here. I don't know if she pops up in the latter ones because I think there's up to 4, right?
Yeah, they continue. I think they continued making them up until 5.
But it took 5 years to get the Sleepaway Camp 2, which seems like a long time in the horror world.
And I'm not 100% certain, but I think there might be a different filmmaker too at this point.
Okay. Well, let's talk briefly about Sleepaway Camp 2 because, as you put it, this is more of a comedy horror in a way. I mean, it's grisly as hell. This is probably the one with the highest body count too.
Yes, and as we stated
kills
earlier,
everybody in like every other frame.
Yeah, boobies galore.
We have Angela back now. Apparently, she's been to a psych ward. She's been given all the meds. She's been cleared. And her uncle gives her a job back at Camp Arawak. How does that work?
This is what I question, whether he was an actual uncle or as everyone called him uncle. Because I think he is not an actual I don't know. I mean, I think that's just his name. Because wouldn't it make more
sense? He's a fun uncle in that he's not biological. He's just somebody you should call uncle.
Right. And I think you'd have to explain that more because Angela was raised by her aunt. Now, would that have been the uncle? I don't know. So I think
here's the thing. Is any of the gender sexuality stuff come up at all in this one? No. It's like that plot point is completely gone. We just have psycho Angela, who's now a counselor herself.
Wait a minute. There is a scene now that makes a lot more sense. The dude with the mullet, which, man, is that a mullet, asks Angela to go swimming. And I didn't even put that together. So now we're referencing her one, fear of swimming, and 2, swimsuit problems.
Right. Okay. All right. So that was really subtle, though, for being such a big reveal. That's all we're going to get. Because this Angela, I mean, the first one, she's getting kind of revenge on the people that are being horrible to her.
Yes.
In this one, she's suddenly this zealot where if anybody does anything morally questionable at all, they're going to die.
And
ultimately... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, for a good portion of this movie, I thought she was only killing females. I thought she was only going after for women. But then it's like halfway through, we finally see that she kills some of the males.
Yes, because, so ultimately you have her at the top of the movie, hit a girl with a branch, cut off her tongue. For essentially, she was the girl who told the story of her previous murders, right? So, boom, all right, maybe she's sticking with the revenge thing. But the next thing that she does is she finds 2 girls smoking weed, drinking booze, getting it on with boys. She burns them both alive. Jody and Brooke burned alive. Grisly. Yeah. To wake up to that charred corpse.
Her sister?
Really gross. Right. But still kind of funny because the actress who plays Angela in this one, she's kind of tongue-in-cheek with it throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Following those 2 girls biting it, you got this character, Mare, who flashed the boys. She's sent home, which really means she was drilled to death by Angela. But then finally, we do got 2 boys who are going to try and prank Angela. So they show up in Freddy and Jason costumes.
I was going to say, shout outs to other horror movies in this. This movie is like a love letter to like what came before it.
Right. Freddy and Jason, and they're going to scare Angela because she has it coming. But she flips the script and she comes at them as Leatherface. And she kills them first, of course.
Yeah, and now she's armed with a chainsaw.
Right. That's what's funny is then she hangs out with the girls after she's all actually bloodied up and they think she's just toying and she's just playing with them.
Right.
The next death is probably the grossest death in all the movies we watched for this cast. And that is Allie being drowned.
My God, yes. Oh,
all over the piss and shite all over her.
The outhouse.
Drowning in grossness. Most disgusting. The rest are kind of almost just like run of the mill after that. You got the guitar string strangle, couple stabs. Granted, the two characters that are nice to her, Sean and Molly, when they are going to look for her and trying to find her, and then they find the cabin with all the dead bodies, she doesn't hesitate to kill Sean, decapitate him.
Time out.
Yeah.
So she's been collecting these bodies, which means she pulled the body out of the outhouse, which is like, you know what? Maybe leave that one there in your trophy room.
Nobody's gonna smell it, right? Not like it's gonna, but she doesn't decapitate the nice boy, the boy that was nicer. Puts his head in a TV.
Hit the TV.
Hey, look, Molly, we're watching Sean on TV. It does kind of just like go off the rails there at the end.
It does.
Ultimately, Molly's freaked out that she's a killer, and she's chasing Molly. Molly sort of gets away, and then of course we have Angela who she starts a hitchhike. She's trying to escape too. Kills the person who picks her up.
Kills the hitchhiker.
Then she now has a car, and then she comes upon Molly, and that's kind of where it's left. With it's the Chase character. It's essentially the character that she related the most with because she was the most morally pure. But in the end, Angela's just hungry for blood in a way that didn't seem consistent with what we saw in Sleepaway Camp.
No. And I too have not seen the other films in this franchise. I would imagine they went back into more of like a slasher feel instead of this horror comedy. I could be wrong about that, but every movie has a different actor, so I don't know if they're continuing the Angela storyline. It's hard to say, or is it even worth trying to find out? Because this movie was fun. I will say
it was fun
for being
it absolutely was
ridiculous and over the top. It was still fun.
I'm gonna be honest. I actually watched Sleepaway Camp 2 a couple months ago, thinking it was Sleepaway Camp 1, and I must have missed the credits because until this week, I went back and like, oh, I watched 2 and not 1. It really put a lot of things in perspective for me. Then I rewatched 2, and it made more sense. Yes, absolutely. The other one we both have watched this week was Stage Fright, which is 2014 horror comedy, kind of, right? Wouldn't you say? Musical horror comedy that had 2 killers involved in it, and it was set at a musical theater camp. And I'm going to give this movie credit for having the most impacting kill, the first one. Yeah. And that's when Minnie Driver, who is a Broadway actress who's essentially playing the role of the lead female in Phantom of the Opera. It's like a alternate version of Phantom of the Opera. She, I guess, is a very promiscuous character.
Yes.
Gets on a lot of people.
We learned that backstage in her green room or whatever. Yeah.
Well, we assume this person that kills her at the beginning, who's wearing an interesting kind of like, it's like a phantom mask, but it's not half the mask. It's just a whole white mask over her face. Kind of feigns to be one of her lovers and is behind her. And she's like, oh, we can't do this now. Gets into it, turns around, and then she gets a knife in the neck multiple times because she's a singer, right? So at this point, it kind of actually had some relevance, some context. But then the last stab like went into her mouth in the most gruesome way that I've ever seen, like a face stab before. Minnie Driver really took it there. And of course there was insinuation there too in the way that she died, which often happens. But then fast forward 10 years, we have her daughter and son who were there that night and saw her perform, who are now ultimately the cooks at this musical theater camp, which I don't remember the name of the camp.
I don't either.
Not sure
I will say though, one of the weirdest intros to a camp are all the camp members singing like "We're gay."
Right.
Is that the song?
That was a very strange beginning. Yes, we're gay. We're all gay. Some of us are in gay in that way. Some of us are just gay happy.
Yeah. What the hell?
It was really strange. It seemed unnecessary. That's something we talked about. This might have been a better movie without the musical component to it. I think the premise is actually pretty decent. Yeah. But it didn't need the music.
Well, I think if it would have been better songs, like if they wrote actual better musical songs. I love the idea of, have you ever seen Anna and the Apocalypse?
I have not.
Which is a really great horror musical. It's, yeah, I mean, if you can do it and do it right. This one, I think, lacked, they did the bare minimum of just creating songs. Like, musicals have to be catchy and fun, but this
seemed
really
like they
lost
had
me.
Meatloaf and they needed Meatloaf to sing.
Well, yeah, I bet you he wouldn't.
That was the main point of having music. And he was great. Honestly, I love watching Meatloaf.
Same.
He was so fun to watch. He's so fun in everything that he watches. R.I.P. Meatloaf. I know you have some problematic views, but you are a delight to watch on screen. And in this case, we might as well give it away because we're getting toward the end of this cast here. He's the first killer. So he was having a relationship with their mother, Minnie Driver.
And was upset.
But she was sleeping with other guys. Yeah. So he's getting revenge on her. Little does the audience know until the end, her son was there in the room with them when he killed her. And he essentially says, you forget this. You don't tell anybody. So then when he then hires them, because he was a big producer, so after his top client got murdered, even though he's the one that essentially sabotaged his own career, he now is relegated to,
He literally killed his own career
along with his girlfriend. Yes. So now he has to have this musical theater summer camp for his livelihood.
And he really needs his Broadway friend to show up.
Yes. Yeah. It felt like a waiting for Guffman moment.
Waiting for Guffman. That's exactly right.
His name on the chair.
Yeah.
But of course, it turns out to be then her son at the end who's been corrupted. And he has these cutaways while he's doing his kills where he's in his own little room in this. It's like a kabuki version of Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
And he's doing this heavy metal like riffs on his own about how they're all stupid. I hate all these people. They're all going to get it. And it was ridiculous. Yes. I hated those cutaway moments.
Terrible.
The only thing that justified it to me is that I was informed that happens in Phantom of the Opera. He has his breakaway moments. So they were trying to emulate the structure of Phantom of the Opera in this one.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Give you a sense of where that character was coming
from.
Well,
what did you think about his kills? Because at first one, is it the director was on stage where the light stabs his foot like into the ground? Yeah. I thought
they did. He rips the foot away too. That was pretty gruesome.
Yes.
The light bulb in the mouth though, that was subsequent to the foot rip when they shoved, because this guy was a sleazer. You wanted to see this, the director of the play.
Terrible.
Who essentially was deciding who was going to be the lead based on who slept with him. And she almost gives it up right before she dies. I wasn't clear on whether or not she had given it up. That wasn't clear. Is it just dry humping? Because it was not totally clear. Nevertheless, beyond the foot getting ripped off, he then has a light bulb that is plugged in, shoved into his mouth, and cracked, and he's zapped.
Yeah. This movie so badly wanted to be Scream, and they wanted that killer to be, Ghostface from Scream, and it just didn't work. No. I think musically it's all over the place. From the musical songs like We're Gay to the heavy metal stuff, it just doesn't work well together. I did not like.
That being said, production-wise, it's pretty. It looks nice throughout the whole thing.
Some money was put into this,
and I wasn't distracted by any performances. In terms of
Good point.
Campy.
Although,
there was campiness.
I will say some of the some of the singers, like the other girl who's competing, I was taken out when she was trying to sing the lead vocals. I just don't think she was a very strong singer, and that to me is like, well. Now you've just made the director even worse because it's very clear that Minnie Driver's daughter should be the lead. Yeah. I won't recommend this.
It sounds like you really struggled with this one. I enjoyed it. Maybe I was just watching it at the wrong time. I agree with everything you said. I'm glad I watched it. I'm not going to watch it again, but it was its own thing. It was its own beast entirely.
I think that's why I really wanted to like it, because I just love that idea. Like, if you could pull off a summer camp movie that's a musical theater camp, they missed a lot of opportunities there to really lean into making fun of theater people, which we can do. But the thing that bothered me was that there was really no summer camp aspect to this. No. I mean, they just said it was at a summer camp. Really, it could have just been community theater, and I would have bought
Totally
that
agree.
too. I didn't.
It was the only
buy-
thing where it worked was that it was his livelihood. The summer camp was his livelihood, and
Yeah.
him making sure to brush all the deaths under the rug so that he could keep the performance alive and to
Right.
bring his buddy from Broadway in there to watch then Kylie Swanson, or is it? No. Who is it? Who's our main lead here? Camilla.
Yeah.
Watch Camilla,
Camilla.
the daughter of Minnie Driver's character, do her part, like do the part that she was killed in,
Yeah.
because essentially she was then going to be his money ticket, his way back into it.
Right.
So in that sense, it did make sense. But yeah, we don't get any of the standard camp tropes that we would be hoping to see,
Yeah.
other than maybe the mess hall scene.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Yeah. I think I was rooting for this movie and it just didn't do it for me, unfortunately.
That's fair. Yeah, I thought it was mediocre.
Yeah.
But there's two more we each watched, and we didn't get a chance to both watch these ones. You watched Summer Camp.
Yes.
I watched Cub. Tell me why or why not I should watch Summer Camp.
Okay, Summer Camp has really good pacing. This is about 4 American teens, and I'm saying teens in quotes because the actors who are playing these teenagers really are in like their 30s. Jocelyn Donahue, who I love. Oh gosh, I can't think of the name. Like some of her movies. The Jocelyn Donahue. Do you know her? Have you seen?
I haven't heard the name. No.
There's a movie that I actually love. I mean, she was in the most recent Doctor Sleep, but
Okay.
The House of the Devil.
Oh, was she the one with the top hat?
No.
She the main villain? Okay.
No. But if you've never seen The House of the Devil, check that out. That's a Ty West film. She's great in that. And I really don't think that her performance, I don't know, maybe it just wasn't directed well, because I think she could have stood out a little bit better in this film about these 4 teenagers who go over to Spain to help open a summer camp. This is like the week leading up to it. Now, the thing about this movie is that it has some inventive ideas. It's not a zombie movie, but it's a virus that has been transmitted. We think it's in the animals, and then it ends up, spoiler alert, it's the water in the camp that infects you, but not permanently. So you're like 20 minutes of like this rabid human. And I thought that was a cool idea. I don't necessarily think of this. I mean, this kind of has the same problems if we're saying it's a summer camp movie, because the kids don't even show up till the very end. Again, I think I just spoiled it for most people. It's like I said, though, it's got good pacing and it is a fun ride. But yeah, I mean, I think I gave it 2 out of 5 stars just because it's not complete.
It has moments. How about
it's got
the
fun moments.
Kill factor.
The kill factors are they're just fine. I think those maybe could have been better. You know, I think those could have been more fun. I don't know. Again, I think I put this on the list because it's called Summer Camp, but it's really just about these 4 people who are struggling with the virus. There were moments where kind of reminded me of Cabin Fever, Eli Roth's Cabin Fever.
Yes.
Which is a great movie.
It's so good. It doesn't quite qualify as summer camp.
No, it doesn't. But that's kind of what I'm saying.
I have seen it on lists, though, interestingly enough, for
really?
summer camp movies. And they just admit, it's not summer camp, but we're putting it on the list.
That's a Cabin in the Woods movie. No,
yes.
but that's what I'm getting at, though. Like, this movie, Summer Camp, also shouldn't really be classified as a camp movie. But it was a fun ride.
Nice. Well, Cub, which is a 2014 Belgian summer camp in a way that these other ones aren't. It isn't a fixed location. We have a Cub, like a Boy Scout troop, who's going out on a camping trip themselves.
See, that's a great.
They're initially supposed to go to. It's unique. It's a unique premise. You're initially supposed to go to this one location, but that's been denied to them, so they have to move over to where they hadn't expected to camp. They camped out in this land that happens to be where there used to be like a factory. A lot of people have lost their jobs. So there's kind of like this kind of ominous vibe to the locals around the area. Anyways, you have your 3 counselors, I guess you will, or like lead troop people, 2 guys and 1 girl. Of course, there's a relationship between one of the guys and the girl, and the other one who has a dog who's just a complete jerk. He's abusive to the kids. But there's this one kid, Sam, who is part of the troop, and it's his first time going on a camping adventure. He's just joined the Boy Scouts or whatever. He has a troubled past, and his adoptive mother had kind of like talked the one nice male troop leader to bring him on. So he's always kind of defensive of this kid who's getting picked on. Of course, our themes are bullying and fitting in a lot in this one. This poor kid, Sam, is getting picked on left and right. But they tell the entire troop this story about Kai, who's the werewolf who lives in this woods.
That's cool.
So needless to say, things start disappearing, and the dog is kidnapped, and everyone's blaming Sam for this because they think he's just like this rapscallion who's causing trouble. But Sam has now seen Kai, but Kai is a feral kid that lives in the forest.
I love that.
I guess it's his dad. There's a male figure that has apparently been taking care of him, who's essentially a people poacher. He hunts people. So it's kind of like Craven the Hunter-esque, where he has set all these like mouse traps, ridiculously Rube Goldberg sort of devices in the forest for people to come across and get murdered. So much fun. I highly suggest this if you can watch a foreign horror. Because the deaths are phenomenal in this. There's one involving a tree that I don't want to give away. I want people to just go and see this movie because I think it's something that flew under the radar, and it's not a happy ending. Let's put it that way. It has one of these endings that kind of leaves you like, whoa, my goodness.
Those are some of the best
not
endings.
What I anticipated happening. Yes. It was great, and it was well executed as well. I'm a big fan of Cub.
That's great to hear. I was, when we started this, I've known about that movie. I guess I just didn't know what it was about. But when we were talking about like the start of this, one of the things that came to mind, I'm like, you don't see a lot of like Boy Scout, Girl Scout horror movies, which I think, that's sort of perfect. It's just, it's like, why hasn't it been done or done more? Yeah.
I mean, some might say Moonrise Kingdom is a little horror.
That's true.
I'm kidding. There was actually one girl in the troop. I guess that's why they had to have that one girl leader too. There was only one girl.
That makes sense.
Which most of the kids, with the exception of Sam, really don't have a lot to do. But nevertheless, it was well done. And finally, before we completely end this, let's just mention some of these comedy horrors that are definitely worth a shot. Maybe we'll have to do our own cast on these down the line because we're already well over an hour.
These are two of my favorite horror movies from like the last like 10 years. I think they're very inventive in the way that, kind of like how, what is his name? Chris, like the Happy Death Day movies, you're kind of like taking the genre a little bit further in a new way.
Right. You're getting the meta on. They're getting their meta on.
They're getting your meta on, but you're also using like the tropes well enough. So one of the movies we're talking about is You Might Be the Killer, which Fran Kranz, who, if you're a horror fan, you love him from Cabin in the Woods. Yeah, he's just,
which is an interesting role for him because I don't see him as the stoner type, but he pulled it off. Because everything I'd seen him in prior, he's like nerdy, sort of sciencey.
Yeah, and he did great in Cabin in the Woods, so much so where I think he proved that he could kind of steal the show, and he does that in this movie, which is a summer camp, and these moments of murders keep happening, and he's talking to like his best friend who's working at the video store.
Chuck. Yeah. Allison Hannigan.
He's great. And she starts, "Are you sure you're not the killer?" And then he's got like this memory loss stuff. But when you really look at this movie, it's like they took Jim Carrey's The Mask and made a horror movie in a summer camp. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it works. It works.
I love it.
I really enjoyed watching that film, and I laughed a lot during it because it's really self-aware, obviously, which is ironic considering he's not aware of what he's doing.
Right.
In the same vein, I might like this other one a little bit better. Final Girls.
Yeah.
With our lead, Taissa Farmiga, 2015. You have this character, Taissa, Max Cartwright, whose mom was a horror queen.
Yeah.
She had been in the horror movies, recently has passed away, but people still associate her with her mom and want her to go to like a rewatch. It was like a revival of her initial horror movie.
Exactly.
To go watch her mom essentially die on screen with an audience and then do a Q&A afterwards. Well, awesomely, the entire theater catches on fire, and the only escape for her is through the screen.
Through the movie, or into the movie.
Into the movie. So she gets to go into the horror movie that her mom is in, but her mom's obviously in character, doesn't know that that's her daughter. And she becomes part of the plot, and it loops in interesting ways if the plot doesn't go a certain way. And you have great supporting cast with Adam Devine and Thomas Middleditch.
I was going to say, this is one of my favorite,
joyously.
One of my favorite horror casts right here. I mean, Angela Trimber. I mean, you've got some great comedic actors like Thomas Middleditch and was Aaliyah Shawkat from
Arrested Development.
Yes. Yeah, this cast worked really well together.
It's hilarious. And even like the character Vicky Summers is so funny in it because she does the kind of this parody of the sex bomb character in it. And everything she does is so funny. It's a must see for horror fans across the board. The killer's fun too. The killer is like relentless, sort of Jason Michael Myers hybrid. Can't go wrong. And then finally, unless you want to speak more to that, we just wanted to bring up how well Addams Family Values does camp at Camp Chippewa, and the subversion of the usual Thanksgiving play by Wednesday and Pugsley, where she, I mean, we don't know for sure, but she might have murdered the camp counselors because at the end they are over a fire being turned like a pig on a, what is it? What do you call that?
A roast, like a spit.
Roast, yeah. Yes, a spit.
Yeah.
So she might have killed them. I'm not sure if you see a subsequent scene with essentially the actress who plays Harmony in Buffy is like this really prim and proper blonde girl who's the mean girl. And she seems like she was about to be burned at the stake too. I can't remember if you see her afterwards, but the insinuation is there, at least momentarily. And it's really dark because you have, a kid doing all this. So love Addams Family Values. I think I like it better than the first one. I think so too. It's just so much fun. And the first one relies too heavily on the mystery of I think that's an excellent point. You know what I want to do now, after having watched all of these great camp slasher movies, is revisit the summer camp season of American Horror Story. Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah. 1984. Yeah. That is such a strange season too. Yes. It really goes in so many different directions. Yeah. Including that one serial killer from LA too pops up in it. Yes. Yeah, it does a lot. Yeah, that might be another good one toward the end of the summer to nice companion piece to this. Yeah. Well, but all in all, I mean, we're dealing with your usual themes in summer camp: survival, fitting in, storytelling, and legacy. There's always pranks across the board. You got coming of age, and you can't have camp horror without hypersexualization. That's right. And bigotry. Certainly some other juicy niblets. Well, but we're going to be off next week, right? Yes, I am going to summer camp. No, I am going to a cabin in the woods just to unplug. Wow. It'll be nice to not have internet, for a week. And then after that, we will be revisiting with some Sharktastic Shark Week. I think actually Shark Week is this week, but for those who are like going through withdrawals, you're going to have ours to come back with. This upcoming week is Shark Week. Subsequent week, we're going to bring you those shark movie cast. Excellent. So thank you for tuning in. And until then, stay alive.